Well, my friend, it seems to me that university must be the way to go.
But that is preposterous. How can you possibly think that God exists in the same way we creatures exist?
Well, I'm not sure anyone actually thinks that. I certainly do not. But let's go back a little bit and clear up a few things so we can get somewhere, eh? What if I said that all men are rational animals? John is a man, therefore John is a rational animal. Isn't man used univocally?
Yes, of course.
Good. Now, I want to say with Scotus that a univocal concept is one in such a way that its unity is sufficient for a contradiction when affirmed and denied of the same thing, and also is sufficient for a syllogistic middle term, such that the extremes are united in the middle term, which is one in such a way that they can be united between themselves without the fallacy of equivocation, as he states in the third distinction of Book 1 of the Ordinatio.
All right, I think that makes sense.
Okay, how about this one? Whatever is desirable is good. God is desirable. Therefore, God is good, as St. Thomas alludes to in Part 1, Question 6, Article 1 of the Summa.
Fine.
What if I modify the second proposition, God is desirable, in the following way? God and human affection are desirable. This will lead to the conclusion, therefore, God and human affection are goods.
But there you go. God is not desirable in the same way other goods are desirable.
So I cannot logically conclude from God's desirability that he is good? Was St. Thomas incorrect then?
Yes, of course you can. You just have to understand that desirable is used analogically here.
And so it seems with good as well.
Yes.
And how is it then we can know that God's special kind of desirability means that he is that special kind of good, which is not the desirability or goodness of which we normally speak? We do not have a syllogism here if desirable and good are not univocal concepts. How can we even do natural theology? Can we even prove the existence of God? Since for God to exist is different than for us to exist.
Why, of course we can prove God exists. St. Thomas's 5 ways are a stellar example of such an enterprise.
I do not think so. Even Geach, in his book, God and the Soul, says, if the universe of discourse involved in the premises is the familiar universe of mutable things, no syllogistic manipulations can bring out a conclusion asserting the existence of something not belonging to that universe, an immutable God. And last I checked, Geach was not a card-carrying Scotist.
Well, I do not think that is right. We must be able to argue for the existence of God, but God's way of existing is not the same as a creaturely way of existing. It is not the same for God to be as for us to be.
I fully agree. Look at it this way. Remember what I said earlier about univocity and contradiction? Okay. Scotus gives us the following example. God is a finite being, and God is an infinite being. These two statements are contradictories, are they not?
They are.
But if you are correct, we must use being analogously here. How can they be contradictory? For this presupposes that being is used univocally in both propositions. The terms must be univocal concepts in both propositions for a contradiction to exist. So I could say, man is a finite being, while God is an infinite being, and being would be used univocally. The mode of being is different, finite, infinite, but God and creation have being. And this very fact is what allows us to successfully argue for the existence of God and make statements about God's attributes that are really meaningful, and not just words that have no analogate whereby to analogize. When I say God is wise, it means something that I can understand with reference to human wisdom.
Hold on here. Let's step back for a minute and look at what St. Thomas actually says. In Part 1, Question 13, Article 5, he asserts that univocal predication is impossible and proves this with the example of wisdom. When we say a man is wise, we are applying a perfection to the man that is distinct from his essence. But not so when it is applied to God, for it is impossible that God should have a perfection distinct from his essence. But this is not a pure equivocation either, since there would be nothing we could know about God at all if every term common to God and creature was a pure equivocation. Furthermore, any argument would result in the fallacy of equivocation. Yet, since univocal predication is impossible, we must have recourse to analogical predication.
But didn't I just show you how univocal predication is possible in the infinite versus finite being example?
But surely you can't be saying that God's existence is the same as creaturely existence, only different in degree.
Let's look at it this way. Would you predicate being univocally of dogs and humans?
Yes.
But isn't there something akin to an infinite abyss separating rational and non-rational animals? How about humans and rocks? They both exist, but you wouldn't really want to say that rocks and humans exist in the same way, with only a difference in degree, would you? It seems that being cannot be univocally predicated of rational and non-rational animals, or rational animals and non-living things, or animals either kind and plant life, etc. It is all analogical predication. You see, I am fine with saying that there is a difference in the way of existing between creatures themselves, and of course, between God and creation. That is just an ontological no-duh, we might say, especially between God and creature. But I am not sure how to make sense of the distinctions if I don't even know what the terms mean when applied to the subjects, because exist means something different, I don't know what, when applied to God and then applied to man.
Well, I do not know how to make sense of predicating being univocally of God and creature. This just makes God another being in the whole group of beings, granted the best being.
But this ignores the fact that the gap between infinite being and finite being is, well, infinite. It is not merely a difference of degree. It is an infinitely different mode of existence. But it is existence, isn't it? I don't know how we can conclude an argument, therefore God exists, and then say that we have no real idea what exist means there.
But we do understand it to the degree that we understand what it means for us to exist.
Well, I am beginning to wonder if this is not just an argument about terms that has severe logical implications. We may be trying to say the same thing, but how we are saying it leads to different proximate propositions that are contradictory.
That may be. I am trying to preserve the utter otherness of God.
I think I do with the infinite finite distinction, but I am also trying to preserve natural theology. I do not think your premises will allow for that. I just fail to see how analogy can be successfully used as a middle term in a syllogism. It seems that you think it must because of a prior commitment to the analogy of being.
Well, there is much more to discuss here, but I really must be going.
Yes, we ought to get into the transcendental sometime. That may help.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for a good conversation.
Thank you.